to talk about the sanitary district expansion, storage water facility that's going to be located along Linden. And you are homeowners that are affected by this project, which is why you're here. I do want to talk about one thing in general before we get specific, and then I'm going to introduce everybody. Actually, why don't we just go ahead and start like in Marysville. We'll introduce everybody. Everybody up here has to do with the sanitary expansion, Linden Avenue project. So we'll go ahead and start with Jack, so you know who everybody is.
Jack Smith, sewer maintenance.
Marty Wilgus, district manager.
Mike Hickey, consultant for the Hammond Sanitary District.
Joe Allegretti, lawyer for the board. Justin Stowe, assistant deputy district manager.
Okay. So we have the sanitary, these are the gentlemen that run the sanitary district. I'm your mayor. We have people in the audience also that work for the sanitary district. We also have council people in attendance. I want to recognize our council president, Janet Vaness. Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Councilman Bill Emerson, I'm not sure somebody, but Councilman. Is that it? Oh, County Councilman Dave Hammond, thank you very much. Former district councilman, now currently county councilman. So thank you guys for coming. This is about the Linden Avenue project. I want to make that clear. However, we are passing an ordinance because there's 3 projects right now that are probably going to involve the use of eminent domain in the city of Hammond. 2 of the projects are happening for sure. One of them is a proposal. Okay, we're here on one of the projects we know is going to happen, the Linden project. It's going to involve the use of eminent domain, which is the government's use of, to acquire properties. The other project that we know is happening for sure is the Gosselin Avenue project up in North Hammond. We're already in the process of taking properties on that one. The third project that we don't know for sure if it's even going to happen, it's a proposal, is the South Lake expansion. That'll be the biggest out of the 3. This project on Linden is pretty big as far as the number of properties that will be involved. The Gosselin, we're pretty much already done acquiring the properties that are involved. And if the South Lake expansion happens, it'll be a big project as far as it'll basically change the map of the city of Hammond permanently. Now, we're always about home ownership in the city of Hammond. And I know that when the federal government's involved in a taking, like it's not involved in the taking that we're talking about today, but on the South Lake expansion, I know the federal government's been offering 120% of home values. We want to up the ante on that. And I'm working with the city council right now, and I'm going to give you a preview. This hasn't actually hit the rolls yet, but I know we've talked to Councilman Emerson about this, that we're going to float an ordinance to keep homeowners in Hammond. So basically it says, if your property is acquired by eminent domain and you're a homeowner and you buy another home in the city of Hammond, we're going to give you a $5,000 bonus. I am confident that's going to pass because I know that the council and the mayor all want to keep you here. Okay? So in addition to, we're talking the West Lake expansion is the biggest project we're talking about. So you would get 120% of your home's value through the federal government, and you'd get a $5,000 bump from the city of Hammond. Now, you have to be a homeowner that purchases another home in the city of Hammond to qualify for this program. So if you're not a homeowner, if you're a landlord who owns multiple properties, unfortunately, this program we're talking about now won't apply to you. However, the federal government would still pay the market value of your property, and then some if it's the federal government involved. That ordinance is like, I forgot the name of the ordinance. I don't know if you remember Councilman Emerson. Chris came up with the acronym for it, but it's like, we love our home in Hammond or something like that. But this ordinance will be going to the Hammond City Council. I think the ordinance stands a very good chance to pass, which means if it does pass and you are a homeowner that's home is acquired by eminent domain and you buy another home in the city of Hammond, you would be eligible for this $5,000 credit. And it's very similar to what we do with the homebound program. It's modeled after the homebound program. Let's talk about this project. The EPA and the city of Hammond have entered into a consent decree. This is all legal terms I've learned over the past decade, basically, while being your mayor. That's going to require the city of Hammond to try to reduce the number of discharges into the Grand Calumet and the Little Calumet River. Unfortunately, for decades, since we get into the Hammond Sanitary District, we've been discharging, not just Hammond, by the way. Everybody's been overflowing during heavy rain events into the Grand Calumet and the Little Calumet River. And then those rivers are combined with a lot of stormwater plus some sewage because our lines are combined. And then that eventually makes its way into Lake Michigan. where we get high E. coli levels on the beaches and stuff like that. But that's concerning because we want Lake Michigan to stay blue, and we want Lake Michigan, that's our source of drinking water as well. So the federal government wants that number to go to 0 or 1 per year. And for us to be able to comply with that, our plant has to get more efficient. It's only capable of about 40 million gallons a day now.
43 million.
43 million gallons a day now. That means we're going to have to get our plant more efficient, and we're going to have storage for water. And anybody that's been up by the plant on Columbia Avenue notices the huge expansion pond that's on the west side of Calumet, right at the Grand Calumet River on the north side. That's a 45 million gallon, 33 million gallon expansion tank. And when it fills, it's filled with rainwater and a little bit of combined sewage, right? A lot of combined sewage. And then what happens is, instead of that being dumped into the river like we've done for decades, that sits there and waits for the plant to catch up. And when it stops raining and our plant catches up, it pulls the water out of there, treats it, and puts clean water in the Grand Calumet. Now, the goal is noble. I'm not bashing the EPA. The fact is, we chose to sign our consent decree with the EPA, because if we didn't, they were going to sue us. The EPA was going to sue the city of Hammond, and we would be on the hook for a lot more than we're on the hook for now. Unfortunately for us, as part of that long-term control plan that we're going to ultimately enter into, we're going to have to find storage in the city of Hammond for stormwater, which is what we're talking about now. And when, these areas will be mostly dry, but they will be wet sometime. And that's why we're here to talk about this project on Linden. Okay? Linden is one of the areas we chose to have one of the stormwater storage areas. And this proposal has been going on mostly through lawyers in the sanitary district. I was approached during Mayor's Night Out and asked if I could get involved and hold a community meeting. I don't remember exactly who it was that asked me, but I promised at that Mayor's Night Out I would set up a community meeting, and here we are talking about it. Okay? I have the sanitary district members here that know details about this plan. I am the mayor of the city, as you all know. However, I don't run the day-to-day affairs of the sanitary district. I'm ultimately responsible for what happens in the sanitary district, but I don't run the day-to-day affairs of the sanitary district. That's done by Marty and done by the board. And that's why Marty and the board are here. Okay? But I just wanted you to know that we want to keep you in the city. If you're a homeowner and you want to buy another home in Hammond, we'll incentivize that, because we want to keep you here. We're sorry. I'm sure that this has got to be stressful, and we don't make these decisions lightly. But this is just the first type of project like this. We're going to have to find storage areas for stormwater throughout our city. And if we make deals with our customer communities, their water is going to be added to the problem. And that's something that Marty and the board are working on as we speak, is making a deal with Griffith and with Highland and with Whiting that's going to get us through the next 2, 3, 4 decades. But I wanted to start off and just sort of lay the groundwork, like where we are currently, what this project's going to entail. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Marty Wilgus. Marty, could you talk a little in general about the project?
Well, Mayor, you touched on a lot of great details. I'm just going to add a few more to those. We've been negotiating with the Department of Justice, US EPA, and IDEM for probably close to 20 years now, trying to get the best deal for the city of Hammond. It's hard to believe it's been that long, but it's been that long. The last 3 years, we have moved very quickly with our negotiations with them. The sad part is we do have to, throughout the city of Hammond, create more areas to store stormwater. And in some areas in the southern part, the far south part of the city where our border is with other neighboring communities, there will be a storage facility like we have across the street from the plant off Columbia Avenue.
But Marty, this one, the one we're proposing on Linden.
The one we're proposing on
stormwater.
Linden is stormwater only.
Whereas the one that's across from the plant is combined.
That
We
is
want to
correct.
make that clear. This will be rainwater, just accumulated rainwater that has to be treated before it's put back in the Grand Calumet.
And one thing is the fact that not only all of us here in the city of Hammond, but every wastewater facility in the United States is under the same microscope with these 3 departments. The other big thing is the fact that to order to pay for these improvements that the federal government is asking us to do, is close to $250 million. that we're gonna have to spend over the next 17 years. So none of this is pleasant, and the thing that we want to talk about on Linden is that when we look at across the city for our first project for storm water storage, that's the site that fit the plan the best. We have easy access to the storm water that is currently separated out of our system to that site, and it becomes the most economical, which is what I am entrusted to do before I start spending your tax dollars. So that was the plan we brought to the mayor, and that's why we decided to move forward with that. We're going to have some renderings that we're going to show you to give you an idea of what it's going to look like, and then we'll talk further about how this is going to actually enhance that area of the city because it will have multi-uses. It won't be just for stormwater. It'll fill up. The model shows that it will fill up. It's going to be 1.5 feet deep. It'll hold a little over 1 million gallons. And it will be able to become also a recreational facility when there's no stormwater.
It'll be dry.
It'll be dry, it'll be green, nice and green, it'll be well kept,
So how often do you anticipate it being?
6 times. 6 times a year, the first time, and Mike,
6 to 8 times a year it'll be wet, and we think, maybe once every 3 years it'll be full to the max level, which is
a foot, yeah, deep.
That stores about 1.5 million
1.4 million, right?
at the end of the day, which saves us at the plant.
And you have to remember that our plant is grown over the years. As the mayor had alluded to, we had customer communities, Whiting, Highland, and Griffith. When I looked at kind of rates that they were paying, they were not reasonable. And the board, along with the mayor, made a very hard decision in the fact that we had to send, the district had to send cancellation letters because of the fact they weren't paying their fair share. And I knew that wasn't going to be pleasant either, but it had to be done because when I asked them to come to the table to talk about it, they said, Marty, we have a contract. We have no inkling of paying a dime more. Well, we went through the court system, and I can tell you right now, with having not able to give you all the details, we're real close to an agreement with Highland, and we're real close to an agreement with Griffith. That will get them to start paying what they should have been paying years ago. But the project here on Linden is so important to us. And once again, anytime that I or my board, an administration, the mayor have to make a decision to take property, it's never easy, but it has to be done.
Is it on both sides of
Good
Linden, the west and the east side of the street?
Right now, for funding purposes, it's only concerning the west side of Linden. I think eventually this project will encompass both sides, but right now, the only action that's been taken is on the west side of Linden, from 175th to the south mall.
That is correct.
But this is special events coordinator for the city, Donna, thank you very much, Donna.
You say for only the west side for now, when is the east side gonna get hit?
It's a difficult question. As I alluded to earlier, we are going to be looking to have to raise about $250 million that has to be spent over the next 17 years. So a part of that is, when do I get that money so that I can move forward on the project? I've had the money set aside to do the Linden side, the west side of Linden. And so it's all matter of when those funds become available so that we can take a look at them.
Yes, I live on the east side of Linden, on the corner, and they're taking my apartment. And I understand this is happening very fast, but why aren't we getting paid moving expenses? And where are these families going that's losing their homes? Is anybody concerned about where families are gonna go?
That's why I'm talking to you about the proposal that we're pushing through the Hammond City Council right now.
Well, I got 30 days to get out, and I don't think that's right.
And you're on the east side of Linden.
I'm on the east corner of 175th and Linden.
She's on the east corner of that 4-unit apartment building. The district took that apartment building because of the fact for the footprint that we need, that apartment building needed to be moved and moved out of that location. The district, along with Mr. Westland, is very cautious in moving with this project as best as we can. I think I've talked to you a couple of times.
I want to be homeless when they put me out. And letter that if I'm not out by October, they're gonna keep my deposit. How do they expect me to move?
You want to answer that?
Sure. This is Dave Wesson, the attorney for the redevelopment commission. We've dealt with these types of issues before. Dave's been our attorney in these issues, so.
What the letter actually said was that we'd give until November 1st, and that at the tenant's request, so that's, and that went out a couple of weeks ago. So it's longer than 30 days. We said we weren't gonna take, the September, we weren't gonna take any more rent, and that if they wanted to apply their security deposit,
Oh,
which
so
wasn't
we
the
don't-
amount, which isn't the amount of the rent, right, that's my letter. And then in lieu of paying the rent, we would just give the security deposit. If they pay the October rent, then we fully refund the security deposit.
So the city's already acquired that part, the sanitary district's already acquired that property.
If she's one of there's like 6 tenants that are affected. And we're letting every tenant run the length of their lease.
Gotcha,
We're not terminating any tenants.
gotcha. So how much longer do you have left in your lease now?
Till November 1st.
They're all up.
But what I want to know is where are you going to relocate me to? I've been there for over 20 years, and I will be homeless as soon as you put me out.
I've been in my house for 56 years.
And you're on the west side of London?
I'm on the west side.
I've been there 33 years, and when you guys buy my house, I won't have a place to go to live or money to live with.
So did anybody take that into consideration about where we're all going to go?
Mayor, with regard to the people that we have acquired some houses, we've closed on the houses, and then we've asked them when, as part of the closing, when would you like to get out? And we've given people 45 days post-closing, so they have their money from the closing,
Right.
and we've given people 45 days or more.
So if I'm a landowner on the west side of Linden right now, the property's purchased by the Hammond Sanitary District, they're giving their money, if they own their, you own your house, sir?
Yeah.
And we purchased your
Well,
property.
now, I'm in kind of a tricky situation.
Mhm.
My wife bought the house. We were married for 12 years, she passed away. Her stepson gets 2/3 of the value of that house, I get 1/3. Now, if that house is acquired by,
And it's owned in full.
pardon me?
You own the house, right?
Well, yeah. But if it's acquired by the city of Hammond,
So there's no mortgage?
no. And just using the figure, say $60,000, I get 20,000. I have no other money. My social security is it. I live on social security.
Right.
Well, I exist on social security. I have no place else to go. I've heard that there is federal funding to help people move and purchase other homes. Is any of that gonna be available, or you don't know about it?
I couldn't tell you about that program myself, but I can tell you that if you're a homeowner, which sounds like you are, and you relocate to another home, we would be able to help you. It doesn't sound like that's an option in your case, so. I mean, you would get the market value of your home in this case. And it's unfortunate that your stepson is gonna get 2/3 of it.
Yeah.
But I want to point something out, that these types of projects obviously aren't easy. We are being forced to find areas to store water because we have too much water in the city and it's being dumped illegally into the rivers. Okay? I understand there's tough stories in here and I apologize. We're trying to work with you. And that's why we're doing what we are through the Hammond City Council and myself. And in situations where you have month-to-month lease, I mean, it's unfortunate. I apologize, but it's a month-to-month lease, and if we're the owners of the property,
Mine wasn't a month-to-month lease. I was a year,
and the
and
lease.
I've been here for over 20 years. That's my only home.
Okay.
And the rent around here is ridiculous. I don't even make that kind of
But
money.
ma'am, but ma'am, you don't own a home, ma'am. That's the problem. If you own a home, it'd be a different story. And this-
So we have to be treated like crap
No,
because we
ma'am,
don't
no,
own a
ma'am.
home.
We have to do something in the city. We have to find places to store this water. And it's unfortunate.
I think they should give us a little bit more time to
ma'am,
help us.
The landlord in your case got paid. And now they are, or he or she did, they got paid. And we own the building now, and we have to have places to store the stormwater. And, yes, ma'am,
How long are you gonna give us to get out?
good question. Dave? Kevin?
I mean, what we've tried to do is work with, my name's Kevin Smith, I'm working with Dave Westland on this project, along with, of course, the sanitary district. And as the director of the sanitary district, Marty Wilgus, will tell you, we've tried to work with homeowners depending on their situation. We had that one couple, Marty, that we helped. They were they had purchased another home. We let them close on their current home. We gave them time to acquire the new home, and then they were able to move into the new home. That worked. It worked really well in their case. So, ma'am, I think you said you lived there for
Not
56
according to
years.
them.
I would assume that you don't have a mortgage, right? So when, when your home closes, I mean, if you need additional time to relocate, to find a new home, I'm sure Mr. Weston's office and the sanitary district will try to make that as easy as possible.
When I-
You guys are just giving us.
When I first took over as mayor, we had a similar situation at River Park Apartments involving over 1,000 families. And we weren't kicking people out, we were working with the people. And so over the course of a few months, the people that we ended up acquiring their properties, and I don't find too many people that say that was a bad idea, because at the time it was tough. It was situations like this, it was hard. But we want to work with you and help you relocate. But as for, we have to have areas to store this water, and this is an area that works perfectly for the city, and we have to meet these EPA mandates. It's not an option, we have to.
And in that case, Mayor, we did have to, unfortunately, we did have to file evictions in a very small number of cases, because at some point the project had to move forward. I mean, we had thousands of families, as the mayor pointed out, and I think we ended up filing 4 or 5 evictions just because we had to move forward with the project, and demolition had to continue.
I have a question for Marty. You said you already had the funding for the west side of Linden.
Yes.
So how soon are we gonna know when this is gonna take place as far as our house?
Well, we go through a process. I'll let Kevin and Dave, who's handling that.
This
tell you
guy, this
exactly
gentleman's
how it
got a
works.
house on the west side of Linden.
What's your exact address, sir?
7600.
Yeah, you're about 2/3 of the way down to the sound wall.
Could you stand up?
Sure, I'm sorry. So far, the offers have been made on approximately 12 properties. 3 on 175th, I think 5 on Linden, just down to the apartments. And then other ones are on Columbia. And so it's up to Dave and the sanitary district to determine when those funds are available as to when those offers will be made. If you have a situation where you would like to, if you have another house that you're thinking about buying and that comes about, I know Marty would talk to you about that, because again, the goal here is to make it as easy as possible when that time comes.
No, we're just looking for an estimated time frame so that we can prepare for this.
Okay.
With us not
We don't
knowing
have
anything
houses.
and hearing all rumors, it's hard for us to prejudge anything, because in order, like my question,
You're on the west side also, Lynn?
yes, I live with them.
Okay.
If we have a mortgage, and our mortgage is just say ballpark figure $70,000, property value for this neighborhood now, fair market value is roughly, from what I was told by my lawyer, $36,000. So my question is, if I am a homeowner and I have been for 22 years in this location, and I have a mortgage, and say property fair market value is $36,000 and I owe $70,000, is it the Code Indiana enforcement's ruling that you have to pay the note for the mortgage to obtain the property, or can you force people to be negative on their balance?
That would be something that would have to be discussed with your mortgage company. I can tell you that so far, there have not been any homes that have been appraised anywhere near $35,000.
That's my point.
Yeah,
That's exactly my point.
I guess my point is it's been higher.
We haven't had this problem.
No, we've not had this problem. And I can tell you also that the appraisals on your home haven't even been done yet. We haven't even appraised it down that far.
Okay, so then
Why are you
say
doing
if,
appraisals on the homes?
I can answer that. Let me answer this question real quick. He asked, why are we doing the appraisals on the homes?
I mean,
So the state, when a governmental entity acquires property, you have to do 2 appraisals. And those are independent appraisals done by licensed appraisers. And what happens is that the offer that's made is the average of the 2 appraisals. And that's made from Mr. Weston's office. And then from that point, you get the offer, you take a look at it, you review it either with your attorney, real estate advisor, whichever, your family, whatever, and then you let Mr. Westland know if you're going to accept that number. But to go back to you, ma'am.
Appraisal, I mean, yeah, but appraisal, that's if you're selling a house.
Correct.
I mean, my house
Or buying it.
is a 2-bedroom, full basement, no garage. Assess it at that.
Well,
For the
it'll
city
be,
to have.
it'll be appraised based on comparables throughout the area, just like an appraiser does. That's what appraiser does. It goes in, and I can tell you that these appraisers that are used are all above board, are some of the best in the state, in the area, if not the state. That's who we're using. And then you have a chance to look at the average and take a look at it. And then you can call Mr. Westland and tell him what you think of it.
Well, I can tell him what I think of it now, but he wouldn't like it.
Well, you haven't seen it yet.
It's not Mr. Westland making the appraisal, but.
No. It's just his office that'll send the letter.
And I will tell you that the appraisers will call you because they will want to look, because there are unique characteristics. If somebody has recently invested some money in their house or whatever, the appraisers will call you. They will want to set up an appointment where they actually walk through your home. And I will tell you from experience of doing this for too many years, the people that get the best bang for their buck are the ones that allow the appraisers to view it. If there's nothing requiring you, we could go to court and request that the court order you to let them in, but the appraisals will do a drive-by appraisal if you don't cooperate, and what that means is they'll basically go to the assessor's website at the county, look at what that says the characteristics are, and go off of there, which...
So Dave, in this gentleman's case, he has a full basement, sounds like a real nice house. He would want to bring the appraiser in and show him.
He'd want to show them all of that, and
We just gutted our house not too long ago.
right, and you'll want to provide that type of information to the appraisers. They will originally drop off a letter saying, hey, we've been commissioned to do this appraisal, and here's our number, please contact us to set up an appointment. And they'll follow up if you don't contact them to, give you more than one chance at it. But if you get that letter, the smartest thing that a landowner can do is actually cooperate with the appraisers, because you want them to appraise that house as high as...
Yeah, well,
But I
this year,
understood that you're gonna give us book value.
It's called it's
a
called
fair
market, it's fair market value, is what it is. And you'll look at it, and you can take a look at it, and if you have a valid reason to say that that's not accurate, you can, that's your opportunity to talk to Mr. Westland, but you're going to get a copy of the appraisals as well, to
yeah,
review.
this year I was gonna have siding put up and convert from, I still have an oil furnace, I was gonna convert to gas. I'm not doing all of that stuff when it's just gonna be torn down. I'm gonna,
Exactly.
if I put in $4,000 into that house, I'll be lucky to gain back 2,000 of that 4.
All right, we're gonna stick with the microphone here.
Okay, going back to the original question. Say the appraiser comes out to my house, say he values it at $70,000, say my mortgage is $70,000. So they pay the mortgage, but now I have no moving expenses to get out. By the Indiana code, it says there's a 5% moving cost. Is that being honored?
If it's in here to go, it's being honored, man. We have to follow the law, absolutely. And not only that, you sound like you're a homeowner, and if you relocated within Hammond, you would have the 5,000 if this ordinance is approved, and I think it will be. And this is tough that we're talking about, okay? The South Lake expansion, if it happens, it's gonna change the map of Hammond. And so this is a good, we've dealt with this type of issue when we did River Park. And River Park today is now Oxbow, and that's, generating income for all of us as taxpayers in the city. And these are tough issues, and we have a heart, man. And if we have control, if we have latitude, we're gonna work with you. We don't wanna put you out on the streets where you have no home. And Dave mentioned something to me earlier. Dave, could you mention what you came up and talked to me about it a little bit earlier? How there's some latitude and we can work with the homeowner situation?
What I said is that for those of you who are renters, right,
Like the lady in the building that we own now, right?
right, if there's a reasonable request to hold over for a period of time, right, and I guess we'll have to determine what reasonable is, the city does have the latitude to allow some, and we have in the past. So we suggested November 1st because it was roughly 45 days from the date the letter went out. We also suggested that you could use your security deposit, which and I don't know your specific off the top of my head, but in all the leases I reviewed, the security deposit was less than a month's rent. So we basically, what we're trying to convey to that was, we'll take your security deposit as your October rent, agree to vacate by November 1st. If you said to the city, listen, I need till November 15th, I'm sure I could convince, and I'm sure the mayor would go along and Marty with another couple of weeks, right? And with no rent being assessed for those 15 days.
That happened quite often in River Park.
At River Park, and you brought that up, there were some leases that we had, and we honored every single lease. So if we took ownership on day one and the lease didn't expire for 60 days, we were basically the landlord for those 60 days. And then if somebody called and said, listen, I know I'm supposed to be out by this day, but give me 15 days, give me 20 days, we honored that and didn't charge them anything additional. And the ones Kevin was talking about were people that were beyond like 30 and 60 days from an agreement we had reached, which was another 30 days past what we had already talked about. As long as you come to us with a reasonable and a good faith solution, we're going to try to work with you. Nobody wants to file a lawsuit, right? Nobody wants this to be more adversarial than it already appears to be, okay? And we don't want it to be adversarial at all. So the communication, and I would suggest on my letter is my email address. If you have access to email, that would be the best way to send an email with your request, because if it's in writing, I can get that over to these folks with my recommendation, and we can get an answer back really quickly.
So is it true saying that when you get your appraisal, at the time you get the amount that is average between the two of what they're going to pay you, does it take the 4 months to get the payment?
Under the law, if you accept a good faith offer, we have 30 days to pay. Okay, so if you get a good faith offer and it says your property is worth X and you say, yep, I agree, I want my money, then we have 30 days in which to cut that check. Okay, what has happened though? Well, and that's a negotiation process. So what's happened in a couple of situations.
Because we're not re-renting your house out, man. So
No,
if you stayed in
I'm trying to get mine over.
I know, but like
Yeah.
if you stayed in 2 weeks longer because you can't match up to your next home for a couple weeks, you get to say, Mr. Westland, there's gonna be a 2-week gap. Do you mind if I stay in our house? And it's not like we're renting your house out. We're not knocking it down the next day. For us, we handle these on a case-by-case basis. We're not gonna put you on the street for 2 weeks.
And that has
That's where
happened.
the human being factor comes into play.
That's happened in a couple of instances where people have called and said, listen, I'm not ready to do whatever yet. Can we close this? And there were some that we've already closed, were done in May, where we actually signed the documents, and they said, I want to close in August. Okay, fine, we'll close on the property in August, and you'll get out when? Tell me. And they've made a proposal, and so Kevin brought up an instance of somebody who got their money, and then it was like 30 days, and they vacated after 30 days, and my only caveat was, I'm going to follow up with you in the 30 days, on the 30th day to make sure you're out, and if you get out sooner, please let us know, because we've got to secure the property.
Well, and that's the thing that we don't want. We don't, and as Dave pointed out, it's all about trying to be reasonable and work with everybody, but at the same time, the flip of that is, we don't want a lot of vacant and abandoned houses, or we don't want apartment buildings that are, 90% empty with one tenant there over time, because eventually that becomes a problem for the city. And we are, even though, the city has the ability to when to issue permits, we are still moving forward with getting bids on demolition of structures that have been purchased and are going to be vacant.
So now Marty said he got all the money for the west side. Everybody talks about these letters. I live on the west side. I have not received one document other than the note we asked you for, Mr. Mayor, that was actually put in our door. Not mailed, was put in our door and delivered. So Marty says he's got all the money for the west side, and nobody can give me a time frame. I would like to know around what month would I possibly be expecting, so I can start preparing to put money aside on my own behalf in case I get screwed. I think that's a fair question.
I think what I'm hearing Kevin say is the fact, is the fact that we are going to work with you. So we're not going to send you a letter tomorrow and send you an appraisal in 30 days, and let's say you accept that appraisal, what we're going to do is if you need time, then as long as it's reasonable, we can negotiate with that. We're willing to work with you because as the mayor indicated, we're not re-renting your house. Once you are out of that house, it's going to come down. So if, and say to answer your question, you're saying, well, if I get a letter, I may need 2 months, or I may need something that's reasonable.
And don't forget, the first letter you're going to receive is from an appraiser saying that they'd like to make an appointment. That process for them to make that.
When is that gonna happen?
Right.
About when?
Is it gonna be 6 months, a year?
Yeah, is it gonna be a year from now? Is it gonna be next month, 5 months from now?
Yeah, is there a tentative time?
You said
That's all I wanna know is about when.
in months' time.
Marty, I think, so the process is this, right? So far, the process has been like this. Marty has earmarked funding for the project, for a certain part of the project. We then tell the appraisers to go out and do the appraisals. That takes a month and a half, 30 to 45 days. Those appraisals come in, the letter gets generated from Dave's office with a good faith offer. So the question really maybe for Marty to address is, when does he believe those funds will be released for the as we move down Linden towards the Sound Bowl? I think that's what you want to know.
But to me, I want to know it's 2/3 down the week, meaning March next
Yeah, I understand. So
Or does it mean
What if we just put our house up for sale now?
I think to answer your question, ma'am, if you want to leave early, which I think is what I'm hearing, I would have no problem, the district would have no problem, authorizing Mr. Westland to send you a letter.
That's not what we're asking, right?
We just want a ballpark figure time-wise.
So we can plan. All it is.
It's about, what they're trying to say is,
We understand.
because I stay next
We
door.
understand what she's trying to say.
I stay next door to them, and,
I guess the best answer that I would have is we hope to complete this project probably by, I don't know, the middle of next year, somewhere.
With the
It's
acquisition?
Yeah, with the acquisitions on the west side, second or third quarter of 2017.
And then if you're on the east side, if you're on the east side of Linden, so you're saying it's not even gonna be probably until the end of 2017 before we're even talking to you, for funding purposes,
So I might as well sell mine now.
right?
That's correct.
Okay, because buying the city block is an easy venture. And working out all the particulars that we legally have to go through. To buy a single property, we have to do the same thing, times 100 if we're buying 100 properties. Okay? So this is a process, and we've gone through this process a couple times since I've been mayor. And there are different experiences each time. When we went to River Park, it took the process about 4 or 5 months, and all the people were eventually out of there. Some people held out way longer than the others, okay? When we did it on the south side of Gosselin, for the expansion of Gosselin, it was a different experience altogether. A lot of people there were happy to sell their houses. We weren't really running into what we're feeling now. People were literally, we would give them the offer, and they'd say, done, give me the money.
You're
And
not
they
gonna
left.
give us what we put into it.
Okay? Question, Donna? It's starting to take another question.
For the people who are willing to
Oh, sorry, I
actually,
called it. Sorry.
for the people who are willing to actually leave early, they're
Leave that.
okay with that. Now, what would be the next steps as far as getting in touch?
This is
So,
like-
okay, if you are interested in leaving early and you want to expedite the process, the best thing to do is let Mr. Wilgus know, let Marty know, that give me your address, and then he will take a look and he will give Dave the go-ahead to get the appraisals done.
What about, let's imagine, I want to take your hypo, I don't know what side of the street you live on. Let's say you live on the east side and you want to sell your house. You still contact Marty?
If you want to sell your house, no, because we haven't really done anything on the east side yet. I'd leave that up to Marty here as to whether
Yeah,
he
It's
wants
not
to
going to touch
acquire.
your side for now?
I think just because of the fact of the cost, and I have a limited amount of money, the east side is not even a possibility.
This young lady says that she wants to sell her house. What should she
Yeah, if
do?
you're gonna do the east side eventually, and I put all this money into my house, I might as well just put it up for sale now and then get a fair deal, because you're not planning on giving me what I put into it.
There's
How do you know
there's no
that?
prohibition of her selling. I mean, we just have to.
But how do you know? We haven't had enough
Because you
records.
said you were gonna give us market value or whatever. but-
120%.
Plus, if you stay in Hammond, you get $5,000
I
extra.
thought that 120% was for South End, or for North End.
They're gonna give you
I know this gentleman had a
120%
question.
of what your house is worth.
Yes, it's Hammond House, not people that are renters.
No,
I
for
own
us.
our house.
For this
Yeah,
project.
I'm concerned about that, but I know half of our
120%, I
street
thought.
is
Guys,
No,
I'm trying to
Is Hammond Housing gonna get involved to help them find new places in Hammond, since you say you wanna keep people in Hammond?
well, I mean, obviously we have options for having housing, they have a list, you know. And it's
But
being invested.
it would be more help coming from the mayor, telling them to please help us.
Well, no,
rather
believe me, I
than
wanna
we have
help
to
you,
hunt them
but-
down, search them out, follow their loopholes.
Right.
And then the other question is, I was a carpet cleaner for 15 years. You guys raised over the fact that this basin will fill up one time a year to its max. And then 6 to 8 times a year, it'll fill up. How long will that water stand?
Good question.
And when it fills to its max, who does the cleanup from? Because on the Slacker side, which is what you guys were talking about earlier, and I couldn't get my question, the opposite side of 8094, from where you're talking about, where you have the bigger basin with the parks and all that, their area is flooded 14 times in 1 year that we went and cleaned houses out. And the city of Hammond did nothing for the people.
Okay.
So when this one floods and my house is across the street from it, who's coming to clean mine? Because my basement got hit 3 times, the city
This is
swore that they were
This
fault
process
for
that
it,
we're gonna.
and we never saw a penny.
By storing water outside is gonna prevent basement backup, sir. This is one of the benefits of this project. That
They
what
said
we're
the
doing.
same thing on the other side of 8094,
Sir, I can tell you
and
that-
that water flooded into those homes.
Okay. Sir, I can tell you since we have installed the large catch basin off the Hammond Sanitary District, Jack, grab the microphone. Jack is the leader of the Hammond Sewage Department. How many basement backups have we had since that thing's been around?
Probably less than 100,
And that's over the course of how many years?
since the basin was put in.
2.5 years. And we would have storms where we would have hundreds and hundreds of homes. My father, when he was mayor, that was one of the major reasons he didn't like being mayor at the time. He loved being mayor. And one of the things that bothered him was he would say, Tom, every time it rains, there's 1,000 homes underwater. And it all comes to City Hall. Rightfully so. I mean, I'm your representative. I'm not complaining, okay? But what we're doing by storing water outside of the plant is helping prevent basement backup, sir.
Well, I understand that, but you have a bad past history with the storage of it and
But-
overflowing.
No, we have ever since we started doing these projects, no, I'm not, ever since we've done the storage, we've had a real good history. And the more storage we create is gonna be an even better history, because it's gonna put less pressure on our system.
But with your own admission, those 100 homes got hit with the city of Hammond, go ahead and clean them out, or were they?
Sir, we have 30,000 homes in the city now. When we get 4 inches of rain in an hour, and you have 30,000 homes, things are gonna happen. Some of these was the fault of the homeowner, not the fault of the city.
My
But
basement
anyway.
flooded twice due to the fault of the city that you guys admitted to, and then never paid. I cleaned it myself,
Okay.
as well as many of our neighbors around here who had basements flood.
Right into the-
Complained to the city,
Well-
the city swore it was their fault, and all they offered was a pump.
I'm not sure
We had to
what,
pay for it.
sir, I'm not sure what basin you're talking in Slacker. What basin are you talking?
Next to the baseball fields.
That's not a basement.
That's not a
Well,
basin.
that's a water catch-all.
No,
And
no,
that was
that's
put in
just
by you
a,
guys.
that's just a low point. It catches water, yeah. It's like the baseball field, that baseball field in Riverside Park. You can't play baseball in March and April because it's too wet. It's a low point.
The district has, for the last 10 years, offered a plan, it's well publicized, where that we offer up to $1,000 for the installation of a backflow valve preventer, which almost 99.9% will assure you you'll never get back up into your basement again, as long as that valve is maintained on a yearly basis. So if you are a homeowner that has problems and is, let's say you're not in the area that we're looking to acquire your home, I would strongly suggest that you take a look at that program.
Questions? Yes, sir.
I live on the east side of the street, which for right now is nowhere in sight. But what if I'm thinking about putting on roof and windows? I'm not gonna pay for some, or start a project next year and have the bulldozers come in 6 months later.
I think your bet is a pretty good bet. I wouldn't do it. If I was in your situation, knowing that the ultimate purpose is for that to be part of the catch basin, I wouldn't do it either. Because you may not, gentleman said earlier, if you put 4,000 in, maybe you only get 3,000 back.
He lives on the west side, which is the
Well,
side.
no, I know, on the west side, but on the east side, I think what we're hearing is this project's gonna go down to Magnolia, and Magnolia won't be touched. The west side Magnolia will be the alley, and then it'll be a grassy area. In the grassy area, we're trying to make it, and I wanna talk about this. We don't want it to just be an area that gets flooded. We want it to be an area that's in use. Maybe there's people out there playing soccer, and when it's dry. Because it's gonna be dry 355 days out of the 365-day year. So we want to be able to use it for those 355 days. I don't want it to just be an area that floods, 5 to 10 times a year. So we're trying to figure out how to make it serve both purposes. Satisfy the EPA, give us a little credit towards the 250 million in improvements we have to do, and at the same time, I don't want it to be a blight on your neighborhood. I live next to a parkway that floods myself, called Knickerbocker Parkway. It floods every single year, south of 75th, okay? We still mow it, we still maintain it. This is gonna be a city park. We're gonna have to mow it, we're gonna have to maintain it, it's gonna be grass. It'll be, Knickerbocker Parkway floods probably 10 days a year, and that's water that would normally go under our system. And it's flooded so much, there's ice skating out there sometimes.
How many times has there been water in the basin that's over here?
Which basin, sir? The one by the sanitary district?
No.
Oh, in this one?
Yeah.
The one right by the school?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, that's a good question. But it's a similar type of concept.
Or the one back here?
This one, although this one is deeper. This is gonna be 1.5 feet deep at its deepest point.
Yeah, but there's one, if I'm thinking right, down at the end of the block.
Yeah, that's what he's talking. Same, okay.
Isn't there one down at the end of the block too that's only about 1.5 feet deep?
Where is that, sir? You're talking about the one by the library?
What, you go, the street by the library, and go all the way down to a dead end. And it sets on the south side of that street.
Joe?
That's not the one.
No.
The one we're talking about, sir, is the one right here by the school. Actually, the school put it in when they rebuilt.
Yeah, that's this one, but there's another one back there. It's never had any water in it. Never. There's one down there at the end of that 172nd place or something like that. Never had any water in it.
Okay. Donna, you wanna run around with that, we're just gonna let this, yeah, we're gonna wait for Donna to get there with the microphone, for purposes of go ahead and TV.
I just want to say one thing while Donna's getting to her destination. This retention basin will have water. There's no doubt in my mind about it. Our rain patterns here over the last 10 years have changed dramatically. As the mayor indicated, we have tropical storms here now that are in small portions of the city. Years ago, we used to have rainfalls that would last an entire day, but would drizzle. We don't have that anymore. We have, when a rain comes in, it comes in heavy, fast, and hits small portions of the city, and it overwhelms our system. What these retention ponds are designed to do is store water so it doesn't become a burden during that rainstorm on the plant. The plant can only handle 43 million. It can't handle 60 million, 70 million. And let me tell you something, at times, you will have 100 million gallons of water coming in instantaneously. And we can take care of that, but only for a matter of an hour or so before the plant becomes overwhelmed.
And Marty, in the old days, when I say old days, I'm talking like 80s, 70s, 80s, 60s, 50s. What would happen when we had these major storms? How would the plant, how would we deal with this?
Open up the gates to the river.
And dump it right into the
right
ground.
into the river.
That's what Highland does now. They dump it into the little cow.
How long has this plan been into effect? When did it start? When did you guys decide to do it?
About Linden? Since we've been working with the EPA. We have to find, this isn't the only project. There's gonna be multiple storage locations for water. This is one of them.
When did you guys started planning this?
We've been in negotiations with the EPA for the past 5 years.
I've
been involved.
When you guys went into our basement, our garage last year, and we were gonna spend that money on our garage, and we were gonna tear it down.
Ma'am, I have no idea what you're doing with the garage there. Myself,
5 years, and you made us fix our garage.
I didn't make you fix up your garage, ma'am. I apologize. I have no idea what your garage looks like. I have no idea where you live.
They got tagged because of their
Did
garage.
you
I'm a
gentlemen
neighbor
over
of
here
them.
say that you would pay 120% of the value of the house?
No, I think,
I didn't hear that.
there's, no, I think what we said was it's fair market value. There's a, which is usually what the appraisers try to do is set the value based on what a willing buyer would sell to a willing seller. So what that means is usually what your house would hopefully sell for on the open market.
120 was in a federal project.
That's correct, that's for
Like
federal.
the West Lake expansion.
Yep, that was for federal projects, yeah.
Isn't that what you said, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
120?
For a federal project. This is
For a
not-
federal project.
Yes, sir. like the West Lake
Not
Detention, for
including our
instance.
homes.
The federal government would be, but, so if you have a mortgage for $70,000, I imagine the home's value, that's par, so to speak. That's gonna be the ballpark it's gotta be. If you have a mortgage for 70, unless you're just grossly upside down, taking out lines of credit, we can't help situations like that.
I mean, mortgage companies want to, what mortgage companies try to do, what they're supposed to try to do, is value the home fairly so that if you go and don't decide not to pay your mortgage, they go and foreclose on your house and get back the value of what they put out. In other words, they're not going to give you $100,000 in a mortgage for a $40,000 house because they're never going to get it back. And you know what? And that's going to be the mortgage, and that's the mortgage company's problem. Yeah.
That's a good point. That's part of the housing crisis.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I have two questions.
Yes, sir.
One, you said that you're not going to take Magnolia Street,
That's true.
and what about the Dole Street?
That is definitely being taken. Definitely. It's,
I'm sorry, I didn't
phase
hear.
one.
There's already been an offer.
Phase one. That's one of the first properties that we taken. So.
You have 3 or 4 buildings.
Yes, I have a question. I actually have a few properties in Hammond, and I know I have to get letters from court enforcement. So, you know, if you guys are planning on tearing down the houses, then, you know what? My question is, why make the repairs?
So okay, I didn't hear it before, but so if you're on the west side of
I got a
Linden.
back hole, that's why I can't.
No, that's fine. So let's say you're on the west side of Linden and you have code enforcement issues, right? And code enforcement wants you to paint your garage or something like that, right? Does it make sense for you to paint your garage knowing ultimately your house is going to be taken? I think that's a legitimate issue you bring up. If you have a situation like that, I think you need to speak to code enforcement and have code enforcement speak to the mayor. What you're saying is totally reasonable, okay?
And just so you know, ma'am, at closing on a couple of the houses we've already closed on, there have been code, actually like fines that were on the property that ended up being waived at closing. So those go away.
What you're saying makes tons of sense.
I have one more question, I'm sorry, for my parents. They don't know if they live on the west side or the east side. They're the west.
They're on the west.
They're on the west side? Yeah. Okay, so they're in danger of having their house all east.
And they've been there longer than I've been there.
Should be there. This gentleman's been has a hand raised for a while now.
Me second.
What's wrong with the city of Gary? No one does not allow it.
What's wrong with the city of Gary?
Why do you make the project there?
Why don't we make the project in Gary? Gary Sanitary has their own sanitary district, and they have their own individual issues with EPA. They have their own issues that they have to deal with. They have their own consent decree, their own long-term control plan, just like the Hammond Sanitary District. You know, and I want to make something clear. We have a representative from Munster here, Mr. Hampson. Thank you very much for coming out. He's also in the Hammond Sanitary District. Hammond Sanitary District is a Munster and Hammond joint venture. Okay, they have 1/4 ownership, so to speak. One out of the 5 board members are Munster. We serve the communities of Highland, Griffith, and Whiting as well. Now, one of the reasons we've had basement backup problems in the past, Marty covered a little bit, is our customers were sending us too much water. I'm talking Munster. Munster's part of the district. Highland was sending us way more water than they were supposed to. Griffith was sending us way more water than they were supposed to. Whiting, we had issues with the past, but quite frankly, Whiting's the least culpable out of the 3 communities. We have gotten into big litigation with them, spent millions of dollars, and now we're at a point where we're readjusting our customer contracts with Griffith and Highland, hopefully very soon, where they're going to pay higher rates to the city of Hammond. And if we agree to take on more of their water, we have to find places that are mutually acceptable to both of us. Because I said earlier, right now Highland's dumping excess water into the Little Calumet River, straight into it. And that water makes its way into Lake Michigan, which is where our drinking water comes from. So Highland waste is fouling our water supply. Highland's going to be prevented from doing that, which means Highland's got to find places to store water as well. This is nothing that Hammond is facing alone. We're all under the EPA mandates to stop dumping combined sewage into the rivers.
Well, and you hit a good point there, Mayor, is the fact that the water department, or I call our stepsister. They sell to far many more greater communities than the three that I sell to are actually true. And so it's a commodity to the city. We would never want to continue to keep dumping into the river and having a water department pulling out of Lake Michigan where the sewage eventually ends, when they have customers that are good for the city and good for the ratepayers of the city of Hammond. So the EPA, Department of Justice, IDEM from the state of Indiana, all have made it clear that those days of dumping into the river are gone and behind us. And they're pushing for zero, but the reality is it's probably going to be 1 or 2 times a year they'll allow us to do that. And just think about it. We have to treat them and everything else. And it's a major, major concern, and that's why we're talking today about where we have to put these basins.
Well, Marty also indicated earlier that our plant's rated for about 45 million gallons per hour, per day. Per day. And I asked Mr. Hickey, if it rains 1 inch across the entire city of Hammond, how many gallons of water is that? He did calculations, took him like 5 minutes. 400 million gallons. 1 inch of rain across the entire city. If you get more than 1 inch, and it's localized, but just keep in mind, now that's 400 million gallons, Marty can only treat 1/10 of that in a day. So part of our $250 million worth of improvement is going to be increasing the efficiency of that plant. It's got to get bigger and more efficient, right?
You're right, and just to give you another idea, is the fact that we've had dry weather here for the last week or so, really no rain to speak of.
It's supposed to rain the next 2 days.
Yeah, tonight actually. The plant, coming into the plant is about 22 million. So we go from 22 million with all the other communities in Hammond and Munster included to 43, 53, 63 million in a matter of maybe an hour. All of a sudden that changes. So I think you're getting an idea of what we have to deal with at the district. And I've always said you should, if you ever want, to come take a tour of the district, because I think you'd be very impressed on what you see, what you can imagine comes into us to treat, and what we end up putting back into the river.
So Marty, in the old days then, you get a big rain like that, you start getting 50, 60 million gallons into the district designed for 40, for 45, you just dump right in the river.
Right in the river. And I think most of you remember what the Grand Canyon River used to look like, smell like.
And
It
now,
doesn't look like that or smell like that anymore.
and now we have that catch basin, we dump it in the catch basin. And that's water that's either going into the river, going into our basements, but now it's going into the catch basin. And eventually we're gonna have 3 or 4 humongous catch basins like that across the city. And then in this case, I wanna make clear, this is stormwater, the one we're talking about here. It's not combined sewage, it's stormwater, it's clean.
Whose decision was it to have it be Linden Avenue? Was that the city of Hammond?
Yes, sir.
Or was that EPA?
No, it made sense from the city point of view, and I'm the mayor, so I have to take responsibility. I'm not gonna, I have to take responsibility as your mayor. Ultimately, it was my decision.
Or you decided?
Ultimately, it was my decision. We have many of these types of decisions to do, sir. I'm not gonna shirk responsibility, I'm your mayor. You don't wanna hear me say
So
this.
all of us in here, we can sue you then?
No, you can't say that. She can vote against me, but, you know, I hope you don't, because I do a lot of
Yeah,
great
but you
things.
guys knew 5 years back that you were gonna do this project, and you still made us invent, put money in our homes.
No, we didn't know 5 years ago
You
that,
put
we've been in
a-
negotiations, yeah. I didn't know Linden Avenue would be the storage location of the stormwater retention tank 5 years ago. We knew that we were making a deal with the EPA and we're gonna have to store hundreds of millions of gallons.
I don't believe anything.
Okay, that's fine, you don't have to believe me, I'm just telling you the truth, so. Donna? Oh, tell me right now.
I still say it has a lot of trouble with all the trouble that was on Linden Avenue.
The 3 or 4 projects that have already been bought and done and closed and stuff that are boarded up, when are we gonna see the bulldozers coming around?
Good question.
That is a good question. So the demolition bids have already been accepted on 2 or 3, Marty, I think. And it's just a matter of I know Kelly Kearney is out this week, but the inspections department then issues the permits for the demolitions. So those 3 will be coming down, and then I know that we just, today in some emails, we determined that the next open bid date, because it's a little bit of a process, you have to do an environmental assessment, and then it goes out to bid. The open bid date for the Board of Public Works is going to be November 3rd. I think that's a Thursday, November 3rd. And that means that those will probably then, if they've been vacated, you know, if we don't have anybody left in them after November 1st, they'll probably come down, weather permitting, in December. The ones that are currently bid, I believe those will be coming down probably more in October.
There won't be any letters sent out to the people that haven't received them yet to where they have to move in the middle of winter. Will there?
So that, yeah, usually we try to avoid that, that's correct, yeah. Because if you want to move out in the winter and, you know, because you found another house, you got a good deal, of course.
Then we can call somebody and have them come out and do the appraisal and...
Yeah, so once your house gets to the point where the appraisals are ready to be called out, Marty lets Dave know, and then the appraisers come out. Like I said, it usually takes 30 to 45 days to get the appraisals done, and then the letter goes to you. If you have a circumstance where it's like, well, I really don't, you know, I'm not going to want to move till March because it's, you know, January.
Yeah.
Again, you know, the city's willing to usually work with you on that.
Yeah, 'cause there is a home that I've been looking at over in Hessville. I'm sorry, it's still called Hessville. It's not Hammond.
They say Robertsdale up north makes me crazy too. And what really makes me crazy is the people who live in Robertsdale, they say they live in White. Oh, we live in Hammond. We have a couple more questions.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Questions over there? Yes, ma'am?
Hi, how many of your past tenants have been made homeless with your past projects, your tenants? Because a lot is focused on homeowners, but there's nothing focused on tenants. And the housing and home housing authority, you know what they recommended? That's BS. There should be someone to help us. So, what are you all going to do about that?
You live in the apartment complex then? In your
Yes, I
apartment?
live where she lives,
Right.
1232 175th Street.
I mean, you know, and that's the building we just bought, right?
Yes.
I mean, we'll try to work with you as best we can. Find a good place to live, I mean.
So you don't care about keeping
No, I care.
residents in Hammond?
No, I care. That's why.
The Hammond Housing Authority doesn't care.
The Hammond Housing Authority is full, almost to capacity. We only have like 9 open.
But if we're being displaced because of the deal, and we're being displaced through no fault of our own, we should be at the top of the list. I'm sorry.
Well, we
But
have,
we should.
but at the Hammond Housing Authority, they have rules, federal rules that we have to follow.
Okay, well, there should be someone to help us then.
Did I talk to you on the phone? I think.
Yes, I've been talking to you.
And if my memory serves me right, and you've always had access to me, I've always returned your phone. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason why there was a problem at Hammond Housing was because there was somebody that comes stays with you or something along that line?
No, the reason there's a problem in the Hammond Housing Authority is they said that there's nothing they can do for tenants. There's nothing, it doesn't matter if we're being displaced. It doesn't matter if I take this letter with all these typos in it from this lawyer over to them, there's nothing they can do. There should be something that you all can do for tenants. Obviously, you don't care about keeping residents in Hammond.
Just renters.
Yeah, just homeowners. You care about them, but you don't care about tenants.
Well, that's
Nothing
the feeling
done for
everybody's
us.
getting from it, that, you're worried about the homeowners because they purchase the homes, they're long-term people. But when it comes to people that are renting on our block, there's no extra assistance, and there's assistance all over Hammond for everybody that needs it. But when you guys are kicking people out, which you have already started doing, that you should make available for Hammond Housing to find
But Hammond-
something, even a temporary.
Hammond Housing
solution.
doesn't have vacancies right now. One of the things going on with Hammond Housing is, I know you know, because you guys live in that neighborhood, is we're going to a major renovation. And we had to displace a lot of residents as part of that renovation. And the residents that were displaced from Hammond Housing are located to other units in Hammond Housing. Right now, because I had to check a few weeks ago because of the situation in East Chicago, where there's literally thousands of people being displaced. I asked how many units we have available in Hammond. 8. We don't have vacancies in Hammond Housing right now. And what we're doing in the Hammond Housing Authority, I think all people would agree, is beautiful. It's a big difference to where it was when I took over as your mayor. It looked beautiful. But unfortunately, we are moving people around to try to get this project done. And of course, there's funds And, you know, we just don't have the options. And quite frankly, ma'am, if I wanted to put you in the front of the list, I could get sued by HUD. I'm not gonna get sued by HUD. I just avoided a lawsuit with the EPA, making the deal that we're talking about. If I play games with the federal housing wait list, that is big trouble. Big trouble.
I don't expect you to do anything illegal. I expect you
I'm
to care about your tenants.
You're assuming I don't care, first off.
I'm assuming by,
Ma'am,
actions.
if I was in your shoes, I
There
would.
is no one who cares.
Okay, well, I
So
apologize.
I need to move to another town in Indiana, or I need to just move out of Indiana, because maybe Indiana's not the state. I live on disability, I cannot afford to move without my deposit. I can't get my deposit until I move. It's a catch-22. So how am I supposed to get around that?
You know, Mayor, just to reemphasize what Dave said earlier, you don't have to pay rent October 1st. So in other words,
That still doesn't help me, I still need my deposit.
but you see what I'm saying, like the money, I think your deposit is,
$580.
right?
Yes, I'll be able to have that.
Yes.
I still need my deposit of $580 to be able to move.
I get it. I mean, you're not paying rent, though. You're not paying rent in October.
I understand it.
Okay.
So $1160, yes, I'll have that, but I won't get the $580 deposit until I move out. That is what the letter says. I won't get it until I move out.
All right, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, she was pretty much asked you, whatever she was saying, because we both live in the same apartment complex, right on 172nd and Linden.
Right.
And it's not really so much about placement, but how much time do we have?
Ma'am, we will work with you. Just like we did at River Park. I tell you, at River Park, we had residents, they would be in one building, and the next building was getting knocked down by tractors. Okay? And we were still honoring their lease, because we didn't want to force them to move before their lease was expired. I personally know of a lot of people that stayed over their lease time because they couldn't find housing, and we worked with them. Just like, we're not gonna make you homeless, but we also are making you realize that this is the situation you gotta pay attention to now.
So approximately how much time?
I would, it's a reasonable amount of time.
In particular?
I would say 30 to 45 days is a reasonable amount of time. I can't hear you, man.
We live in a pair of apartments right there.
7536, the ones that haven't been sold yet.
Uh,
We were just curious like when they might be sold after New Year maybe.
yeah, did you get that?
Yeah, we're right there at the beginning, right behind the drive by.
7532, is that?
36.
Are those the ones that are kind of down, like
They're next to the gas station, right?
behind the gas station to the south? Yeah, they're two identical. Yeah. So those are actually in court. Dave was in court, I think, on the 13th of September with Mr. Patel, who owns those properties. That's who your landlord is, yeah. So it's still in negotiation. We haven't closed on them. We're not, we're getting closer, but we're not to the point where we're closing. But I think, Dave, do you want to add anything to that? I mean, you're not far apart, is that right?
I think, I had a conversation today with the owner, and I think we're getting really close to, now if we would enter into an agreement with the owner, you're probably not gonna close for another 30 days, okay? So at about the time of closings, when you'd get the letter from us saying, hey, here's where we're at, and I guess I think I said this earlier, when you get the letter from us, my email address is right on there. So if you need a specific amount of time over and above what we're just saying in the letter, the quickest way to get that response back is to email me so I can get it in writing to the people up here, and we can turn around and answer for you. But, you know, what the mayor said was that we're gonna work with you, but the faster you give me kind of what your reasonable time frame is, and I can't, we've never, in any of the projects, ever forced someone to move out in the dead of winter. We just haven't done it.
So when you say you're gonna work with us, does that mean time or financial, like, financial time in place, or you just giving us time?
Time was what I was referring to.
Do you have members of the Hammond City Council in there right now? And if legislation comes up where, you know, on behalf of the renters, I'm willing to entertain it. But at this point, there's nothing that requires us to do moving expenses for non-homeowners. Okay? That doesn't mean that it's impossible. But like I said, there's a piece of legislation that's going to be moving very soon that incentivizes homeowners to stay in Hammond in another home, okay? But as far as what I've been hearing a lot of today is relocate. There's nothing that requires us to do that, but that doesn't mean that something may not come up, okay?
And let me just, when the mayor says there's nothing that requires us, so you have a lease for a period of time, I'm assuming, right? That's, starts on day one and ends on this day. The city has always allowed you to at least run the entire term of your contract, your lease agreement. So if you have a lease that says you're there until January 1st or February 1st, we're gonna honor that lease agreement. And what I was referring to in terms of working with you is if you need time over and above that, or if you're already beyond the term of your lease, then you're under the law what's called a month-to-month tenant. Meaning, upon 30 days notice, the owner can say, hey, I got a new tenant, or I don't want to rent with you anymore, right? So we've always honored the whole term of the lease, and if you're month-to-month, because you're beyond that term, that's when we've worked with people to give them even more time.
Yes, ma'am.
With the demos that are going on, I've noticed the roach population is like,
Yeah,
there's no even word to explain.
I've heard about this.
Yes, so.
I just had a brief on it the other day.
When they're doing the demos, are they bombing before they do the demos?
Good question.
Can
Funny
they
enough,
spray the
we just
demo?
talked about this at staff meeting 2 days ago. Did you get that kind of data?
During the roaches,
Yeah.
yeah, whether they're bombing prior, yeah. So what, great example, there was a terrible roach problem on a property on Highland Street. And what we just currently did was we had to bomb it first before we demoed it because we didn't want the roaches to end up in, the neighboring properties. I think that's the responsible thing to do, and that's what the city has always done.
Mayor, did you say earlier that you're also going to take the west side of Magnolia?
No, sir.
Or you're going to stop at the alley?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Magnolia, you'll look out your backyard for the west side of Magnolia, you'll see an alley and grass going all the way to the south wall.
That would be until approximately 2021.
Yes, sir. That'd be, I think by 2018, probably the whole thing's done, Marty.
It should be right there.
Okay. So, if you're on,
Before you want to buy our house.
because, what's that?
About a year and a half before you're going to
Probably, if you're on the east side, yes, yeah. We're starting northwest, working south to the sound wall, then we're gonna go northeast, and then work down to the sound wall, okay?
Going back to one of the earlier questions, we all got notices from the city saying, or from code enforcement saying we had to put it on street doors, street windows.
These are issues, sir, I think that we could, Tom, you the inspector here? Yes. Nice, thank you for coming, Tom. This is your, yeah. I was like, wait a second, I have a code inspector right over here. Tom is the code inspector of your district. Tom, you've heard, I think if you're on Linden and we have issues like this, I think it's reasonable for us to relax a little bit.
Yeah, we've decided that if there were any issues like that, we're not gonna enforce them. Basically, we just wanna see, as long as you own the deed, the lawn's still mowed. So,
Okay?
so.
But that doesn't mean we could let our properties go. If it's a capital improvement on your property, we want you to change the windows. I think that we need to relax when it comes to situations like that, because it makes no sense for us to force that, and then we take it, right? Yes, sir?
Yeah, they did some work on the expressway. I live on the east side at the end of the block. And they did some work on the expressway and then they tore down the houses on the next project at the federal government homes.
Columbia.
Yeah, and then were roaches all over. Well, the trash man came by today and confiscated one of my garbage cans because they said it was roaches.
That public works people in there? They have to take that, right? What's your address? I'll follow up.
7621 Linden.
7621 London? I'll get you that one. Okay.
I got one more question.
All right.
Those are all Sears houses, and somebody replaced the windows in there, and my windows are like falling out because they didn't use treated wood, and they're like wrapped with aluminum. Do I have enough time to repair them?
Why should we put in,
Why are you complaining in your house and gonna tear it down?
That's the question.
They're not going to pay anything extra for it, even to fix it.
I'm not sure.
I think you need to do what's safe, whatever it takes to keep your home safe. So if the windows are falling out, you need to make whatever.
Some
nominal repairs.
Somebody told me they called the county, and the county said to keep a bill, and that would be added into what would be paid for the house.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you show that to the appraiser, is what I heard, if you show that to the appraiser that you need improvements in your house, he would take that into account.
Any more questions? We did this at the urging, I don't remember who it was, there was a mayor's night, but they were, it was you, sir? Thank you. Thank you. This is how it started. It started at mayor's night, I appreciate you bringing it up, and I said, you know what? There's a lot of confusion out there, I want to set up a meeting in the neighborhood, knew it wasn't going to be easy. I appreciate all the experts that have been helping us with this. I apologize to those that are affected. We're going to do our best to work with you to make this as seamless as possible and to get you a fair deal. We're not looking, I want to keep you, and we're not looking to run you out, but we want to give you a fair deal. Ideally, you would relocate to another section of Hammond. That's my goal. So, thank you all very much for coming out. I appreciate it.